Good evening from Kamboya Division in the Northwest region and welcome to Essential African Information. The headline for this edition will focus on sexual violence in schools is gradually gaining grounds in the Cameroon context, but the reason for this notorious act is yet to be determined as the authorities are taking strict measures to punish any perpetrator of these acts. 5 people have died and 10 others injured after Al-Shabaab militants attacked a hotel in Somalia on Sunday, January 31st, 2021. Gambia's President Adama Barrow launched his National People's Party, that's the NPP, on Saturday evening to support his candidacy for the presidential election scheduled for December 4, 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned for the news in full. Good evening once more. Sexual violence in school is gradually gaining grounds in the Cameroon context, but the reason for these notorious acts is yet to be determined. According to a communique from the Ministry of Basic Education, Mr. Boyoma Charles, head teacher of the government primary school Bieberebe 2A in the Mbam and Inubu division of the Central region, was laid off his duties after a series of complaints related to sexual assault on children. This report brings more details. According to statistics from the ResearchGate, sexual abuse in schools is often approximately 15% among classmates and teachers, with 7.9% of the cases. The question still remains: who influences the other to perform such acts? Is the teacher to be blamed or the student? Recently, it was a case of a teenage boy who was sexually assaulted to death by his teacher in the West region. These cases are questioning the African tradition of teachers being the ultimate caretaker and example to students. But if the cases keep rising, will parents not fear to send their children to school? It is true that the people who abuse children are found in all communities, amongst parents, among teachers, and amongst religious people. The situation in Cameroon is one that's going on across Africa. Unfortunately, parents, guardians, and even victims do not speak out to themselves in an effort to avoid stigma and disgrace. Meanwhile, the immediate and long-term consequences can be devastating to the health and social development of the victims. The involvement of children in sexual activities they do not fully understand will always have harmful consequences, including physical injuries, sexually transmitted diseases, poor performance in school, and rejection by their peers and adults, and might even lead to death. According to the World Health Organization, watchdog organizations say 40% of schools in Cameroon have cases of sexual violence, including all sections of education, even though the Ministry of Social Affairs debunks these statistics. Many have questioned what attracts perpetrators to nurse thoughts of sex towards a barely 5-year-old, talkless of carrying out the act. True that many perpetrators often blame indecent dressing on the part of the female gender, but what is an excuse for violating men or boys? Sexual violence is mostly practiced between teachers and students in high schools and universities for the purpose of examination success. Still, the teachers should be punished for promoting such. It is time for the community and authorities to fight this before it gets out of hand. The bold step has been taken by the Ministry of Basic Education already, but is that enough? Children have the right to be educated, so do teachers to educate these children and nothing more. The Vatican's envoy to Cameroon, His Eminence Pietro Parolin, celebrated a pontifical mass in the political capital Yaoundé, specifically at the Carmelite Monastery in Etoudi, after his visit to the crisis-hit northwest region of the country. This was on Friday, January 30th, where he preached peace and reconciliation, while acknowledging that Cameroon's armed conflict in the northwest and the southwest region is having a humanitarian consequences that need urgent attention. The only solution, he said, is for both parties to call for a ceasefire, listen to one another on a dialogue table. According to the Vatican, the visit is meant to show once again, and in the context of the current humanitarian emergency crisis caused by the pandemic, the attention of the Church and the Pope Francis for the African continent, a land rich in humanity but marked by great suffering. It is also intended as a concrete sign of a common supportive and inclusive commitment to protecting and promoting the dignity and good of all, a willingness to show care and compassion, to work for reconciliation and healing, and to advance mutual respect and acceptance. The Pope called for this expression of concern in his message for the 54th World Day of Peace celebrated on the 1st of January 2021, which was entitled A Culture of Care as a Path to Peace. A few days after the tragedy of January 27, which occurred on the Bafoussam-Douala corridor at the Nchang Hill, which has posted a total of 55 dead and 28 injured to date, the Minister of Transport, Jean-Ernest Massenengale Bibe, traveled to the west region of the country from January 31st to February 1st, 2021. For 2 days, he held a working session with the governor of the West region and stakeholders in the transport sector in this region, as detailed in this report. The installation of 2 latest generation semi-portable radars operational day and night on the Yaoundé-Bafoussam corridor is one of the resolutions taken by the Minister of Transport, Jean-Ernest Massenengale Bibe, at the end of the working session with the governor of the Western region, Awa Fonkwa Augustine. A few days after a tragedy that occurred on the Chang-Douala axis on January 27, 2021, at the Chang Hill, involving a truck carrying flammable liquid without authorization and a bus from the Interurban Transport Company Menua Voyage, making a report of 53 dead and 29 injured. The head of the Cameroonian Ministerial Transport Department visited the West Cameroon region on Sunday, January 31, 2021, on the instruction of the Cameroonian head of state, Paul Biya, to express the compassion of the government to the families of the victims and the survivors of this unfortunate accident. For 2 days, Minister Massenengale Bibe spoke with the various players in the transport sector in this locality. More opportunities to appreciate and assess the evils that plague this profession. These include overnight travel and the clandestine transport of petroleum products. During the working session, he also drew everyone's attention to their respective responsibilities in order to avoid turning the roads into a real dying place, an opinion shared by many officials present at this meeting. In addition, Jean-Ernest Massenengale Bibe noted several shortcomings after examining the reports of the technical and administrative audits recently carried out in the terminals of certain interurban passenger road transport companies. These include, among other things, a generalized poor managerial quality of the companies punctuated by a summary and poor organization and management, the employment of drivers without a driving permit or affiliation to the National Social Security Fund and with low remuneration, the lack of organization of driver retraining sessions, overloading via the increase in the number of seats in vehicles by drivers on the basis of previously defined agreements with company managers. In view of all these issues, the minister therefore took immediate steps to stop the hemorrhage on the highways, namely the establishment of a mixed control brigade to fight against illegal transport and ensure compliance with road traffic rules. Also to place particular emphasis on the deployment of said brigade, especially during night checks. According to the minister, 2/3 of these said accidents occurred in the western region or on highways to or from the roads. Those same 2/3 of accidents all happened between 12:30 a.m. and 3 a.m. We can only hope this meeting will keep the flower promise, because as the saying goes, the road does not kill, but we are the ones who kill. On Sunday afternoon, as armed militants are near a checkpoint on the road leading to the international airport, an Al-Shabaab militant detonated explosive, causing panic in the area, which led to 5 deaths and 10 wounded, amongst which a retired army general, Muhammad Nur Galal, a former defense minister known by many in Somali as a war hero. 3 militants were killed as security forces arrived on the scene, with a 4th dying in the initial detonation. Gunmen then stormed the Africa Hotel, a popular meeting point in the central. Frequently by many officials, members of the security forces and community leaders. The attack comes at a crucial time for Somali, as the country was scheduled to hold indirect parliamentary and presidential elections before February 8th. But with political disagreement, meaning 2 regions won't take part in the political instability, and vote may once again worsen in Somali. In a ruling pronounced on a Sunday, Nigeria's Constitutional Court confirmed that a second round of the presidential elections is to be held on February 21st, 2021. The court noted that no candidate had obtained an absolute majority of votes in the first round, whose annulment partial or total cancellation claimed by opposition candidate was rejected by the court. Details in this report. We excuse for that, and we take you over to Gambia, where Gambia's president Barrow launched his National People's Party. That's the image that we showed, and we are going to go back to Niger, where in a ruling pronounced on Sunday, Niger's Constitutional Court confirmed that the second round of the presidential election is to be held on February 21st. The court noted that no candidate had obtained an absolute majority of votes in the first round, whose annulment or partial or total cancellation claimed by opposition candidate was rejected by the court. Details in this report. People in Niger began casting their ballots in the country's first-round presidential and parliamentary elections on Sunday, December 27, 2020, as President Muhammadu Yusufu is preparing to hand over power after the expiry of his 10-year tenure. The country's 23 million people have high hopes for change, even though none of the 30 candidates got a majority of the vote, reason why a second ballot is being implemented. The court had received the request of the President of the Independent National Electoral Commission, that's the SENI, in the form validate and proclaims the final result of the first round of the presidential elections of December 27, 2020. The court therefore declares Mohamed Bazoum and Mohamed Usman candidates in the second round of the presidential elections. Bazoum and Usman must for the second round engage in negotiations with the 28 other candidates who would not place in a country where it appears that alliances are made and broken quickly. 18 opposition parties, including that of Usman, gathered in the coalition CAP 20-21 called the failed candidate in the first round to join the candidacy of the former president. Benefiting from the support of Hama Amadou, the main opponent rejected from the ballot for a conviction in case of trafficking in babies. CAP 20-21 has already threatened not to recognize the results of the second round if it is not transparent and honest without ballot box stuffing. 10 other unsuccessful candidates in the first round, including former President Salou Djibo, have formed a second alliance, the Alliance of Candidates for Change, that's the ACC, offering their support in the second round to any interested candidate in return for power sharing afterward. The cumulated score of the ACC candidate does not exceed 10%. That report from Niger takes us to Gambia, where Gambia's President Adama Barrow launched his National People's Party (NPP) on Saturday evening to support his candidacy for the presidential election scheduled for December 4. In a televised broadcast of a meeting that saw a large crowd of delegates and supporters gathered at the Independence Stadium in Bakau, about 12 kilometers from the capital Banjul, the 55-year-old politician said the NPP is the party of all categories based on the notion of true democratic and patriotic citizenship. Created and declared in December 2019, Barrow waited to officially launch the NPP, perhaps intentionally in light of the violent protests against him that same month, and also in January 2020 for not honoring his pledge to step down after 3 years following his December 2016 win and hold a new election in which he could not stand. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your keen attention. Remember, we continue with Le Capsule de Sport, and up next is also Le Journal de 20, which focuses on people with special abilities. That's with Thierry Nyopé. Stay tuned, and until tomorrow, have a blessed day.